Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks as always for being with us today. If you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard, buckle up. We've got a great show in store for you with my friend Lisa Coleman. And for those who are back for more, thanks as always for being here. I really appreciate your support. And I'm thrilled to jump in today with Lisa. So Lisa has been in real estate since 1995. She's a real estate agent. She's an investor. She's a mom. She's host of the podcast, Your Time Is Now. Basically, she's an all-around real estate rock star and one of my real estate heroes. And I'm so excited that she's here with us today. So thank you so much, Lisa, for being with us today.
Hey, Erin. Oh, I mean, how do I follow up that? Thank you. I think I'm pretty awesome now. No, I'm joking. But thank you. So I am so excited to be here today because y'all, I just love Erin. I do. So
well, thank you so much, Lisa. And I was really excited to have you on the show because as we're recording this in October of 2023, there are a lot of people that are facing a market they've never seen before. And having been in the business, in your case, since 1995, and in my case, since 2006, I know we've both been through our share of lows and highs and more lows and more highs. And I always think it's nice to talk with people that have been through it all. And look at us, we're still here. We're still standing in spite of it all,
I know that song just entered my mind. I'm still standing,
Yeah, exactly. So I want to be here from a perspective of encouragement to those who are listening, where maybe they're navigating some choppy waters that they've not ever experienced before, to help them understand that there is always hope and that everything is temporary. But as always, I like to start from the beginning. So let's go back to kind of how and why you got yourself into this crazy industry, what your journey has looked like, and then we'll bring it full circle to see what tools you're employing today to navigate the current market. So share a little bit about your backstory in the real estate space.
Well, absolutely. Well, so I did not get in real estate because, like a lot of people say, I like to look at pretty houses or, to go on tours like that. I actually got in real estate because I got mad at somebody. And that, and that is the truth. So way back in 1990, because I got my license, I think it was in May of 95. So I think it was near the end of 1994. I bought a house in mid 94, and then I fixed it up. And I guess you could say that was my first flip, but I wasn't in the flipping business at the time, house flipping business at the time. But I found another house riding around that I loved. I was out in the country. I had horses at the time. I show horses as well. I had land. It was a soft contemporary. I'm like, this is the perfect home for me. Listing agent was the agent that sold me my house. So I call her, I go under contract on it, put my house on the market. It sells in like a week because I had redone it. We're all happy. 2 days before closing, we find out that agent didn't do her job properly. She did not. It was years before the internet. So you would have to, ask to see the deed, have to go down to the courthouse. She didn't ask the right questions. And then she found out that the person selling the house, her ex-husband, was still on the deed, and he refused to sign because she said he owed her X amount in child support. He said, no, I don't, because I've given you cash several times. So in essence, my house is sold and I have nowhere to go. And so, and people are like, and, yeah. And so I went, moved back in with my parents.
Oh my gosh.
Because I had anywhere to go. I had like 2 days, and they had a house big enough. I had a 125-pound Rottweiler, that was fun. And, so we made do. And about 6 months later, I found another house, didn't use her, obviously. But I got mad, and I was like, how dare you do this to somebody when all you had to do was ask a few questions? I didn't know anything about real estate, but I worked with my father, and it was in sales, and it was in managing people and doing all that. And I was like, why didn't you just ask this question? So I went to school, got my real estate license, and here I am. So that's how I got in real estate, because I got mad.
I love that. So talk to us about your initial launch of getting into real estate, going 100% commission. What kind of support and training? Were you rookie of the year, or were you a struggle bunny like me? And then anything that you've learned over the years that you apply to markets like this, when things shift and external factors affect our business and you are launching all over again.
Absolutely. So I will say this, full disclosure, I had the benefit of starting my real estate career in a very small town here in North Carolina. And this is where I live. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina now, but this time I lived about an hour from Raleigh. So the thing is that was the town I grew up in. I knew everybody, it was a small town. So fortunately, when I started the business, I did get out there and do mailers and do open houses and all that, but I pulled off of my, my network and the people that did. And then, of course, back then there wasn't anything. It was a small town, like I said, less than 8,000 people live in the town. So there really wasn't a rookie of the year and things like that. And it went like 3 years later is when I left where I was living, because I was averaging probably 30 houses a year in that small town, which is a good number. I mean, it was like in the whole county, and I thought, well, and the average sales price was $76,000. So I thought, well, if I can do this here, I'm moving to Raleigh, because the houses are 3 and 4 times the price. Literally, I can make the same or more money and not do as much work, with that. So that's where I started. But I will say this, one of the best things I ever did, if new agents starting out, if you're listening to this, or you're like, what can I do? We were talking about, the ups and the downs, and people say we're headed towards the down cycle, and we're going to talk about that later, because I believe everything's mindset, including your economy that you have around you. But one of the things I did was I learned my market. And I did that when I moved up here as well. When I was living down there, like I said, it was a small town. And I looked around, and in that small town, we had 12 apartment complexes that were government subsidized, meaning the government paid part of the rent or something like that. And back in those days, we also had a program called Farmers Home here in North Carolina. Now it's got a different name and they don't do subsidized. But at that time, they did subsidized housing. Well, I was working for a new construction builder. He had a real estate company. So what did I do? I farmed to all those subsidized apartment complexes and said, if you can afford $300 a month in rent, because that's about what their share was, you can afford a house payment. I can get you in a house for $300 a month, because it was subsidized. I was selling, like I said, 30, 40 houses a year, brand new construction. And most of them were people going through that program, to the point that they started sending me the mortgage packages and applications. And when the money would come in, they would say, Lisa, you get first dibs, the first 5, grants are yours. And I would call people on my list that were on waiting lists, and we'd get them approved. We'd build them a house. We'd move them in. I'd get paid, and everybody was happy. So that's kind of how it all started. Was I learned my market. I'm like, who's the best buyer around here? Because back in those days, I actually did sell the most expensive house in the county at one point, and that was $250,000. So you can imagine the price of housing back then. So
I love that you say that, because I think it's really applicable to the current market. We were just talking this morning, just in passing, about who is buying right now and who is selling right now. And the current market, first-time buyers are buying when they need to buy. When babies are born or people get married, they're not comparing the current rate to what the rate was 3 years ago. They're just trying to figure out what can they afford with the current rates. And then you've got the investors who are seeing prices start to stagnate in some markets and decline in some markets. And they're looking for creative ways to continue to build that portfolio, because they understand the time value of real estate. And when prices are coming down is a great time to take advantage. And then you've got the people that need to sell, either because of relocation or because of stage of life, like taxes are going up, the cost to heat your home. If you're an empty nester living in a 4,000 square foot home, you're probably thinking, I need to sell. So it's just a matter, like you said earlier, everything is mindset, including the economy around you, is that you've got to be willing to decide, I'm going to thrive in spite of. And then I'm willing to find the opportunities that do exist. Because when I interview people about 08, 09, the ones that were thriving, they got creative with short sales. They got creative this way. I mean, your creativity comes from your decision to thrive, first and foremost. So what does it look like for you then over the years? I mean, that's a really cool story. And then obviously your journey evolved further. So where did it lead you to from there?
Well, so then I said, if if I can do this here, I can, go. And that's what I tell people all the time. When we're talking about like you said, your market, what are you selling? What are you doing? I try to tell agents all the time when I'm talking to them is, we get hung up on the numbers. We don't get hung up, and the only number you should be hung up on is how much am I going to make? Because everybody wants to. When you said rookie of the year, it made me laugh because I I was rookie of the year when I moved to Raleigh because they considered me a new agent because you can't compare the two markets. They were completely different. Now it's one big market. We didn't even have an MLS back then. When I moved to Raleigh is when I learned how to use a lockbox and an MLS because we drove around, picked up keys, So, and then you had to label them so you didn't take the wrong key back to the wrong office.
My gosh.
So, I've been doing this a long time. But what we were saying is, how do we just what I tell agents do is like just look at what's in front of you. Like you said, investors are buying right now, not because the prices are, I don't know what the market's doing where you are because you're in Colorado, but here in North Carolina, we're not seeing a big price drop. We're not seeing price drops at all. We're actually still seeing multiple offers, over list price and all that. But we're not getting 30 and 40 offers on a house. There may be 2, there may be 3. But investors are coming in because, you're looking at the market between 250 and 500 is very stagnant right now for first-time home buyers because the interest rates are so high, So when we were talking about, how are you going to do your business? How are you going to build your business? How are you going to make this work, coming into this? You've got to look at the creative ways to do it. Like I just bought 3 houses because we're an investor, but we've got mortgages on them, but we didn't use a bank. There's private money out there. There's people out there that will help people buy a house, but they're going to want part of the equity going into it, in 5 years, 10, whenever they pay that off. People don't look at it like that. Every one of these houses that we just bought, we've got a 7% interest rate, and that is unheard of for investors. But we're going to pay them on the back end, and they'll do that for people buying and moving into a house as well. It's called an equity position, and that's a whole other thing. But that's what people need to start looking at. When these agents are saying, "Oh, woe is me," the market is slowing down. I'm going to tell you, 2008, 2009, we made a lot of money. The agents that were working and knew how to work the market, that was some of their best years. Some people, 2020 was, middle of pandemic was their best year because they figured it out. And that's the thing. It's not, I didn't sell a house today, I didn't do this, or I don't have any buyers. It's like, go look at your MLS and see who's buying. Don't go off what someone else, look and see, get the algorithm, see what mortgages are they using, and with that, people talk about, farming apartments have gotten old. Those people need somewhere to live in. I'm going to tell you, in this market, a 1-bedroom apartment can be upwards of $3,000. Even at 7% interest, they can have a $400,000 house. Market it that way. Not you need to buy a house because it's no longer I need a place to live. There's options for living. It's how am I going to, what's going to create wealth for that person? Look at it like that. The people you're helping, tell them, I'm not helping you find a place to live. I'm going to help you build your wealth. I'm going to help you keep more money in your pocket because you've now got an interest payment you're making instead of a rental payment. And that's going to come off your taxes. At the end of the year, you're going to get more money back. Start looking at those different angles. I think that's what agents aren't doing right now.
Well, and I've always loved how you prioritize the wealth building conversation and everything you do in your real estate business, because we joke that we became accidental real estate investors in 2010, and it was the best accident that ever happened because we kept the first house that we had bought for $95,000 in Denver, and we all know what happened since then. And what was interesting is that because that happened, and because it was a 1-bedroom row home that we bought when we were engaged and we lived in it until our first baby was 5 months old, I was able to tell my clients, just buy what you need and nothing more. Just get your foot in the door. Don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And that's what ended up being a catalyst to my husband retiring early and me retiring early, was the game of building wealth through real estate. So I love that you talk about that, because I heard a really crazy statistic the other day. It's almost too difficult to believe it could be true. That something like 90% of realtors are not investing in real estate.
No, that's true.
It doesn't make any sense to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I always talk with people about like, what's your why? It's not just about selling deals and then getting the next commission check. It's not about the transactions. It's about the way you impact lives. And if you're not using real estate in your own wealth building journey and you don't have your own path to financial freedom, then we're nothing more than a slave to our jobs. But you have an opportunity to earn a healthy active income. So if you can turn that active income into passive income, it's not just for your own financial independence, it's for your ability to then teach others what's possible for them. And this is where you can change lives, because
Absolutely.
buying and holding real estate for someone like a teacher or a hairdresser that is only ever going to make a certain amount of money based on the hours that they work or the profession that they've chosen, which is their passion, it shouldn't limit their ability to become financially free. And real estate to me is simply the number one vehicle to get to financial independence. So when you can do that for yourself, you then have the opportunity to help more people. Don't you think that's going to change the vibration of all of your conversations and the energy that you bring to your business and what you attract?
100%. When you said that statistic, it made me think. So I'm in a group called TRIA, Triangle Real Estate Investors Association. It is part of RIA, Real Estate Investors Association, which is nationwide. When we have meetings, especially our main meeting, everybody wears a name tag and there's dots on it. And the dots are, you get a one color dot if you're in a flipper, and one color. It doesn't say if you're an investor, because we're all investors there, people that are there. But if you're a real estate agent, you get a different color dot. And I get that dot as well because I'm still an active real estate agent. But you'd be surprised. And I've noticed that, like, real estate agents show up. And I'm going to go ahead and tell most of the agents out there, when you talked about not investing, you're looking at real estate the wrong way. You're looking at trying to sell a house to get a commission, which is fine. That's what's paying your living expenses. Your investments is what's going to set you up for later in life. Let's set up your kids, doing that, what they're calling that, generational wealth that you're setting up. They're looking at it all wrong. And that statistic is true. I can tell you at all our meetings that we go to, if you walk around, look at the name tags, the real estate agents have that one dot. They don't invest. And they're going into that meeting trying to meet investors so they can sell the properties, make a commission at some point. And I'm like, guys, and you don't have to have a lot of money. I mean, I don't think real estate agents look at that, understand as well. You don't have to have a lot of money to start a real estate investment. In fact, you can have zero money, because that's what it's called, why it's called other people's money, but you have to look at it as the wealth building part. I mean, we bought a house for $26,000 after everything in, and this house was a dump. For $26,000, you can imagine it was a dump. I just did the numbers yesterday. All in, we have $74,000 in that house. We just had it appraised because we're refining it. It appraised for $115,000. So we've got that equity. Now, we haven't used any of our money to buy this house. We have we've used part. I'm sorry, used a little bit. For a mortgage on it, for our private money lenders, $56,000. When we refinance, we're pulling out $92,000. We're going to give him his $56,000 back. That's his payoff. So we've got $40,000, and we still have the house. And I have a tenant in there now. She's moving in like 2 weeks for $850 a month. We had zero money in that. And that's what people aren't looking at. They're looking, real estate agents are looking at, I want to sell this house and make, $8,000, $10,000 worth of commission. And the next thing you know, it's gone. Take half of that commission, or just, go to these meetings and sit down and meet and listen and learn. And don't think about it as I'm making the commission. Think about it as, how can I use this to invest and build my wealth,
Yeah,
So,
it's funny you say that, because I'll never forget the first client that I had that was an investor with a vision, and he was clear on his vision. He and his wife, they were my age. I mean, we were in our early 30s probably. Yeah. He had a vision. He wanted to have this many rental properties. And once they had this many rental properties and this much in passive income, he was going to be able to retire from his job as an engineer. And then he was going to be able to start his property management company and all these things. And I used to ask him a million questions. I would pick his brain. Wait, how did you learn about this? And what do you know about that? And so as the mortgage lender, I was using the client as an opportunity for me to learn. instead of having this, fear of imposter syndrome of, I hope he doesn't know that I don't know as much as him. So, sometimes as the service provider, you can try to, like, you might be afraid that you don't want to ask questions of your client because you don't want them to think that you don't know enough. And I'm like, no, ask all the questions, leverage.
Questions.
Yeah.
I mean, you just reminded me, I have a client she's under contract on 75 acres, and it's going to be a 200 lot development. And she called me to help her put it together, just writing the contract. That was it. And I asked her yesterday, because I know zero about land development. I have sold large tracts of land in the past to national builders. But once they're, I'm representing the seller, they're doing their own thing. And I messaged her yesterday. I said, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, when you start your development meetings, they start next week, with the surveyors and the developers that are helping her, put in the meetings at the county. I said, can I come? I said, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I put this deal together. I know nothing about land development. I want to learn. And she said, I'd be happy for you. You could tag along, shadow as much as you want. And she doesn't look at, most people would think, well, I'm not going to ask, because there is that, I don't want them to know what I don't know. It's like, I told her, I have zero clue on land development, but I want to learn. And and that is the best way to learn. And so and it's going to take hours out of my week, my month, but it's going to pay off. I'm investing in myself. It's going to pay off in the long run. And I think that's where a lot of people in this market, they're not investing in themselves. They're not investing in real estate. They're not investing in themselves either.
100%. So one of the things that you glazed over earlier was around creative financing and not having any money in the deal. And rather than go down a rabbit hole that's going to take us on a tangent and maybe overwhelm the listener anyway, because it's a lot to learn about this stuff.
It is.
My question is, where do people go in their existing market to find the resources they need to learn about these types of creative financing and what exists? Like, where do you begin when you want to start to scratch the surface of the banks that you might be able to partner with, that might be able to provide the financing you need, or finding private money lenders? Like, is there a community out there, or is it just through your local community that you found all that?
Well, no, there is. So like I mentioned before, RIA, Real Estate Investors Association, that is nationwide. They will have, all you have to do is type in Real Estate Investors Association, Google it, and, you will find one in your area. Now, if it's not in your town, if you're in a more remote area, there's one close by. There's, here in North Carolina, there's one in Raleigh. There's one in Fayetteville. There's one in Charlotte. There's one in Wilmington. It is mainly in the major areas, but that, I would say, that's your first place to start. You can go on Facebook and look at groups. You can Google private money lenders. You can go, YouTube is, a lot of people say I have a degree from, I have a 4-year degree from YouTube, I have university, because a lot of people do learn from that. The only thing I would say is just go to the communities first, because there are a lot of private money lenders out there. And if you haven't done your research and you haven't, compared and looked, you will be taken advantage of. Someone tried to take advantage of me yesterday, on this refi. They were, I finally looked and I'm like, what is this 4.6% origination? That was ridiculous. I was like, that's a bit high. I don't think we're going to do this. I'm going to go talk with someone else, and with that. So there's a lot of people out there that call themselves private money, but they're not. And so do that, because, there are, if you can get a regular mortgage, that's fine. But a lot of people have circumstances where they can't. And that's when you start as an agent or as a buyer, get your list of private money people together, because they are going to charge you a little bit more interest, but you're going to get the deal done. But I would say first, I cannot brag on RIA enough, Real Estate Investors Association. That's the first place I would start. Like I said, there's a lot of communities out there on Bigger Pockets. A lot of people, a lot of real estate, join Bigger Pockets. Go to the Bigger Pockets website. I love Bigger Pockets, and they have Facebook groups. They have, you can be a pro, I think, for $29 or $39 a month. It's not very expensive. And there's lenders in Bigger Pockets, and all these people have been vetted. You can list yourself as a real estate agent helping investors on Bigger Pockets. It's just, you were talking about other avenues. Right there's your other avenues, to do with that. So that is, that's another huge resource to use. And Bigger Pockets has a podcast as well. Start there. And they talk and they interview people all the time that have built, they're multimillionaires, and they started with nothing. They started using private money and buying investments, and they've built their wealth up to that. So
thank you for pointing that out, that they started with nothing, because one of the things that I think is easy to do is look at somebody who's gotten to where they've gotten to, and you might think, I'm too late, or it was because they started when they did, or it was because of the rates. And it's like, no, it's because they started. And don't compare yourself to someone else without understanding that at some point they had to learn, and they had to try, and they had to fail, and keep getting up and keep going. And don't compare yourself on chapter 1 to them on chapter 10. Just get started, and you might be surprised by how quickly you get where you're trying to go. One of the things that I'm curious about, because I know that you are really passionate about mindset, and I think that mindset is probably the number one common denominator for anyone who's thriving in this market. And people are thriving in this market. There's people listening thinking everybody's stuck, and that's because there's lots of conversations around what's not working right now. The ones who are killing it in this market are not having conversations around what they can't control. They're just out there making moves and making things happen. So how do you control your own mindset to ensure that you continue to thrive in spite of things you can't control?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm glad you went there. And we talked a little bit, off camera, about a book I was reading called Dollars Flow to Me Easily. But it's not just talking about the mindset of money, it's the mindset of everything. And I'm a true believer, and this not sound like a cliche, but what you put out is what you bring in. And I'm a believer in, if what I see out there and on my big screen picture of my life is what's coming from the inside. Nothing out here affects me. I'm the only person that affects me. And I tell people I talk with, that's what you have to look at, is what is your perception of that? Because, it's kind of like, I've written several offers for this one girl, and she's having a hard time getting a house. Most agents, after 2 or 3, and they're going on and on, so that's pushing that closing out further and further. They're looking at it as, well, here I did, I failed again. Or if you need that closing because you're thinking, I don't have, the money to pay for anything next month, that all is affecting your mindset, and it's going to, come out into the outside resources you're in. And what you're going to do is just keep pushing away that contract that's going to get accepted. You're pushing away those clients, with that. I guess you'd say I look at everything as an opportunity, in the mindset. And it's like, okay, we didn't get this house. There's a reason. Now we're going to find one that's better, and a lot of people say, well, Lisa, that everybody says that, and that's BS. It's really not, and your clients, your investors, the lenders you're working with, or, anyone that you are working with, they can sense what's going on with you. And that's the thing, is like, I don't look as, a lot of things are failures, but I don't look at them as failures. I mean, honestly, and, I don't talk about this much. We lost almost 6 figures on the first house we ever flipped. That's a lot of money to lose, we had a line of credit, and we're still paying it back. But most people would have quit trying to flip houses after that. You know what I did? I bought another one. But in that next one, I made $84,000 on it. So I hadn't paid off everything, but, I didn't let this one affect what I knew was coming down the road. When we finally did our numbers, I went, oh, and then it was, how can I learn from this? And that's I think it's another mindset tool that people, when they fail, they don't look at how to learn from it. If you have a client that fires you, or you can't find clients in this market, it's like, how can I learn? Where am I making the mistake? Because that's what's, everything's coming from within. It's not, this client's difficult. There are some difficult clients, but it's not this client's difficult, and that's why I can't get them under contract. Maybe you're looking at it a different way. So, that's what I equate to mindset, with that, is how can I learn from the failures I've made, and how can I change me? What's the thing they say, that, how you view everyone is the perception of yourself. So, and, I don't know if that's getting too woo-woo.
No, but what I was thinking is that, I always joke that the 3 worst words in the English language are must be nice. and
Oh
how
gosh, yes.
people could be listening saying, oh, well, it must be nice because Lisa is an optimist or Erin's an optimist. And, the people that know me really well know that the mindset work is probably the hardest work of all.
Oh yeah.
That over the years and the journey of realizing that what I think and what I believe will lead to the actions and the actions lead to the results. And that if I don't slow down enough to do the work on the mindset before I go check the other boxes, it all falls flat anyway. So I've gotten to a place where I slow down in order to speed up. So I spend a lot of time before I give myself away to the external world in the mornings, priming myself, getting myself prepared, checking in on my mood, checking in on my energy, doing what I need to do to transition myself out of a negative space and into a positive space. But I choose that. It's work. It's not like you just wake up every day, jump out of bed, sunshine and rainbows, smiling and skipping around. It's like, but wouldn't you agree? Like to say that you choose to let failures be lessons, you choose to look for opportunities. Like it all comes down to one thing, and that's choice. And you're choosing to do the work from the inside out to create the momentum you want in your external world.
Absolutely. Well, and you and I talked, I mean, I have done so much work in the last 9 years. And I mean, it has, and for a lot of people that maybe say, well, it must be nice, guys, it has taken me a long time and a lot of work to get, to where I still try to see the good and the opportunity and everything. I mean, I'm not going to go into details, but, starting in 2014, surgery, my father died, my dog died, my car died, another surgery, divorce, another surgery, had to sell my house due to the divorce, found out my ex-husband had a lien on the house, and then started getting investigated by the IRS. He got disbarred because he was an attorney, and they wanted to come after me for the money because it was joint money. So I had to settle that and hire an attorney and pay 6 figures. Then he started dating someone, had to get a restraining order against her. Oh, by the way, you have thyroid, tumors on your thyroid and parathyroid. Oh, by the way, they spread to your brain. So I went thyroid surgery, brain surgery. I mean, I laugh about it, and then, it just kept steamrolling. And it's really, I'll be honest, it really has cleared up in the last year. We have, besides, kids having surgery, my son's had a couple of surgeries because he's a football player and the accidents happened, and things like that. But I mean, all that stuff, and all my friends were like, you just kept on going. And I'm like, sometimes, you have no choice. You have, the world, and I don't think people understand this. The world doesn't care. And I hate to say that. And once you get that mindset, is like, nobody cared besides my immediate family, that I was going through all this. And the main reason they probably cared is because I had 2 kids to look after, on my own, because I'm a single mom and they live with me 24/7. They've never almost lived anywhere else. So you just kind of, you have to look at it as like, what can I learn from this today? Is this going to break me? Well, it may or may not. I mean, I had someone ask me, they're like, did you ever think you were going to die? When they said you have to have brain surgery, you got a tumor in your brain, I said no, because death was not an option at the time. It really, I know that sounds, I'm saying it very lightly, but, it wasn't an option, so, and honestly, there are people out there in a lot worse shape than I am, or I was. And that's also why I thought, there is no, it must be nice attitude. Everything's, everybody has everything they need to survive, to thrive, to fill every need, to fill every want. You just have to know where it is and how to draw it to you. We talked about the law of attraction. You can say, I don't have enough money to pay these bills this month. You've put that now in the universe. Guess what? You're not going to have any of money. But if you have $50 or $100, or you have one client, be grateful for that, because guess what's going to follow that gratitude? And that's going to be abundance, and it's going to come in. So
yeah,
maybe
I love that.
Maybe that's a little more than what you.
No, I mean, what I was just thinking is, man, we could talk for hours and keep going on this, and I want to honor your time. And
yeah, I'm good. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. And it is interesting because you know, we talk about all the things we can't control, and where your attention goes is where your energy flows. So if you want to sit here and talk about what's not working out for you and why you're waiting for the rates to change and the inventory this and the prices that, or the all the things that go on in our lives that can affect us energetically and derail us, at the end of the day, I just want to say, well, what are you going to do about that? I mean, you can't control the external world. So what are you going to do anyway? And what do you really want? And what are you willing to do about that? Because honestly, the only difference between those who are thriving and those who are surviving is that those who are thriving have decided to, in spite of every other circumstance. And just that little rant that you just shared there about all of the things that you just rattled off that you experienced in a compressed amount of time that are absolutely like tremendous and life-changing, impactful, major things going on in your life. And yet here you are saying, I choose to look at failure as a lesson. I choose to find opportunities. You choose. And again, we could have finished this interview and nobody would have known that you had gone through all of that stuff. And they could have just seen the person who's choosing to find opportunities and think must be nice for her, and having no idea what transpired between chapter 1 and chapter 10. So I just hope the listeners walk away thinking to themselves, where can I change my thoughts towards the opportunities and then be willing to go do the work to find them in spite of all the things I can't control, and not be a victim to my circumstances.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Everyone has a victim mentality. It's just how you manage it. You know, people think they're like, well, I don't have a victim mentality. We all do somewhere. You know, we all do. Someone cuts us off in traffic, you know, we're irritated. How dare they? You know, well, we've just become a victim to them. You know, it's all how you look at it. Just turn it around. Well, they're in a hurry to get somewhere. Let them get where they need to go, because I'm eventually going to get where I need to go. There you go. You've just flipped it and your whole day's better.
I love that.
You know,
well, Lisa, before we hop off, how can folks follow you or find you? Anything you've got going on in the horizon that people might want to know about? Just go ahead and share whatever you've got.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, you know, Instagram, and what else? Pinterest, and, you know, and all the socials at Midtown Realtor, MIDTOWN Realtor. I think, you know, my email will be below. My website, I have a couple, but my main one that works with people with coaching and everything is Your Time Is Now Inc. You have to add the Inc. to the end, inc.com. So Your Time Is Now Inc.com. And then on TikTok, I'm Lisa Coleman Real Estate, because someone else had Midtown Realtor. So, you know,
awesome.
with that. And then, but if you'll just go to Instagram, my link's in my bio there too. So it's at Midtown Realtor, and, you know, everything's right there. So that's my big platform.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for being with us and for sharing all your story.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. You know, this is fun.
Yes, I appreciate you. And thanks to everyone out there listening. As always, if you're enjoying the content you're finding here on Pursuing Freedom, I implore you to please leave that 5-star review wherever you're consuming this, because not only does it help us continue to attract amazing guests like Lisa, but it helps others find this content to help them on their journey towards building a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.